Christ, you guys are so fucking annoying. You live in Iowa, okay? Shut the fuck up. You live in Iowa and you got radicalized by watching a YouTuber, okay? You are not a Maoist third worldist. You are not a revolutionary. Shut the fuck up. Whoa. Your praxis is just annoying the fuck out of a leftist Twitch streamer. That's it. Like, it's not praxis. Well, you do ads now? No, I don't. Why are you saying that I do? Why do you keep ignoring the situation in the UK / Elon Musk? Is it because you know you would be out of your depth covering it? Why do you keep ignoring the situation in the UK? Which situation? What? What are you, what? Why can't you guys be normal and be like, hey, man, have you heard about insert thing that's going on? Don't act dumb. Come on, man. I just, what do you do? What do you do with this? Like, this guy came in hot, okay, locked and loaded, ready to fucking go, ready to rip. I have no clue what you are talking about. I just, give me, like, why am I trying to, like, what are you, the Riddler? Like, what is this? Ooh, an enigma, a mystery wrapped inside of a riddle. Like, what do you mean? Just fucking say what the situation is, dumbass. What is this? Why are you coming in here with like this accusatory tone? Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Why do I have to pry it out of you, dumb fuck? Just say what it is. It's crazy, man. And then he's like, oh, and you are out of your depth covering it. Like, okay, well, then why do you want me to cover it? Yes, you are right. I am fearful of this secret story that you know, that I know as well, and I don't want to even talk about it because I'm so scared.
Generational change in the Democratic Party, Michael.
Yeah, that's some big news there, Jay. And Jay, overnight, we also learned more about money President Trump and his family made through a cryptocurrency venture. What did we find out?
Yeah, Michael, we're learning that the Trump family just yesterday made $5 billion after the release of a digital coin that's from a firm that has ties to President Trump and his adult sons. Now, that firm, World Liberty Financial, says that these tokens were given to founding members of the company, that they can't be sold yet. So any gain is only on paper. But it comes as the Trump family is building this emerging cryptocurrency empire, and the president has reoriented the federal government to make the U.S., as he says, the crypto capital of the world. Now, the White House denies any fact that President Trump's assets are in a trust managed by his children. Michael.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
Yeah, billion with a B, 5 billion.
Democrats are making a big push to reclaim the governor's mansions in Virginia and the governor's mansion in Virginia in November. They're also banking on the party keeping the governor's office in New Jersey. Why these two races in particular are being watched so closely for signals in next year's midterms? Harry Enton is running the numbers on that for you this morning. How are things, set the table, how are things looking in Virginia and New Jersey 2 months out?
Yeah, I would say that these two races are the biggest flashing red siren signs for Republicans. Why is that? Let's take a look right now at the prediction market odds in both New Jersey and in Virginia. And in both cases, the Democrats are favored. Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey, 89% chance of winning according to the prediction markets. How about Abigail Spanberger in the great Commonwealth of Virginia?
I think it's weird that they're using prediction markets. Maybe I'm the friend who's too woke, but I feel like it is a weird way to expand the permission structure for betting markets to become a normal part of the political world, when you got CNN, a mainstream media outlet, consistently using in their analytics prediction markets as though they're like a reasonable way to figure out how a candidate is polling, how a candidate is performing in any race. I think that it's nefarious. I think that it's fucked up. I don't like it.
Virginia, we're talking a 94% chance of winning. I was looking at the polling data as well. The Democrats in both these races hold high single-digit leads. Obviously, Glenn Youngkin, currently the Republican governor of Virginia, was able to win there. And in New Jersey, the Democrats barely squeaked by back in 2021. Right now, the polling leads in both those states are larger for the Democrats. They're in better position than they were back in 2021. That's why in both cases, the Democrats are heavily favored. And as I said earlier on, to me, this is a flashing red siren warning sign for Republicans.
Counterpoint, there has always been a lot of debate around how much you can take from any one race and extrapolate and apply it to any future race. Why should Democrats or voters nationally care about what's happening in New Jersey and Virginia?
Right. Okay. So you see the Democrats leading in both of these races, right? Predicted to win in both of them. Why? Why should people nationally care? Why am I saying it's a flashing red siren for Republicans? If the same party has won in the New Jersey and Virginia gubernatorial races dating back since 1989, guess who won the U.S. House the following years? 6 out of 7 times, the same party wins in the nationally, and they win the U.S. House of Representatives if, in fact, they win in both Virginia and New Jersey. So what happens...
That's a cool stat. That's a really interesting look, Harry.
Exactly right, because the bottom line is this. If you're not a resident of Virginia and New Jersey, you go, why should you care? It's because nationally these races do, in fact, have predictive power if, in fact, the same party wins in both of those states. And currently, Democrats are favored to win in both, and history suggests, therefore, 6 out of 7 times, they are predicted to, in fact, win the U.S.
I'm skipping. I'm moving.
China is celebrating the anniversary of victory in World War II with the leaders of Russia and other nations, but not the United States or its most important allies. It follows a summit that showed nearly all of U.S. rivals lining up on the same side. North Korea's dictator Kim Jong-un, who rarely leaves the country, joined the celebrations this morning. Anna Korn has more from Beijing.
Good morning. Behind me on Chong'um Avenue, China will host its biggest ever military parade to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. For Chinese leader Xi Jinping, this will be a moment of glory. As commander-in-chief of the world's largest armed forces, he will watch as tens of thousands of troops march towards Tiananmen Square, showcasing the country's newest military hardware. Among the guests attending, Russia's President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. It will be the first time Kim will appear together with Xi and Putin in what is seen as a direct challenge to the US-led world order. Well, that message was also conveyed over the weekend at the Regional Security Summit in Tianjin, northern China, where Xi hosted more than 20 world leaders, including Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. At this week's events, Xi is not only asserting China as a stable and reliable partner, he's also...
They're about to MAGA so hard, bro, with that fucking parade. Oh, lordy, lordy. I'm telling you right now, that parade, oh my God, bro. They're gonna butt MAGAs. We can't do shit right, bro. We can't do shit. God damn. It's so whack.
So showing off the country's alliances and its
Over
might
30K
and
Epstein
power.
docs have been
a
released.
Message
Whoa,
solely
what the
intended
frick?
for the United States. For CBS Mornings, I'm Anna Corrin in Beijing.
Let's talk a bit more about that message, that gathering of world leaders in China with CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd. Sam, thanks for being here. So you've got Russia, China, and India, the leaders of those countries, very happily being photographed together. Clearly that's intended.
Yeah, will it be sponsored by Crypto.com? Fuck no. Or the UFC. Or some energy drink. Some energy bev that is like owned by Putin, Xi, and Kim attend major military parade in Beijing. We'll look at the Epstein docs in a
Send a
second.
message. If you were sitting in Washington analyzing it, what is the message to you?
Well, Tony, let's be clear. India, Russia, and China are not a natural circle of friends. They're more a club of convenience. Since its founding in 1947, India has kind of played both sides. They've maintained a close relationship with the United States, while also, for example, staying very close to the Soviet Union and then Russia. However, after getting the cold shoulder from President Trump in recent months, India is certainly sending a message to Washington that it has other options than the United States. And Russia and China are ready to welcome India with open arms. China, for its part, for a long time, has been working to undercut U.S. influence on the world stage and really to drive a wedge between the United States and its partners.
Sam, the president is engaged in this global tariff fight over trade, who's importing, who's exporting, and then you've got China. It seems like China is trying to present itself as a safe set of hands for the global economy. Am I reading that right?
China is certainly trying to present itself as an alternative to the United States. President Xi, over the weekend and yesterday and today, is trying to position China as a stable partner on the world stage, while, of course, China is engaging in malign behavior around the world. China is focused on creating alternatives to U.S.-led institutions like NATO.
I mean, it's just... Again, in the backdrop of this, like, as far as like Russia and its military conquest in Ukraine, you already know what my position on this is. Totally unacceptable, violent, ridiculous, okay? But like saying this within the backdrop of the American-Israel partnership over doing an unlimited baby murder genocide in Gaza is so funny, because it's like what moral authority do we have here? What moral authority can we ever have? Even before the genocide of children in Gaza, but we never really had that moral high ground. But like, it's gotten to a point. It has gotten to a point where even Western countries, like the populations in the Western world, recognize that we are utter hypocrites. We can't even get this fucking American forward operating base to stop its unlimited child holocaust. Like, marginally scale it back. We can't even do that. It's crazy. It's crazy.
No, that's why President Xi is really trying to supercharge this organization called the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and set up, again, alternative entities to the ones that the U.S. currently leads.
Quickly on India, does the U.S. have as much leverage as the Trump administration thinks it has?
The U.S. is India's largest trading partner, and the U.S. provides a serious amount of military equipment, as well as just security assistance to India overall. So the U.S. has leverage, but China and Russia are waiting to take the United States' place. So it's important that President Trump reposition the United States as a predictable partner for India so that it doesn't turn further towards Russia and China.
All right, Sam, thank you very much.
A lot has been made of the images that we're seeing, especially of these three leaders coming out of Beijing. But what sort of message did China want to send to the world?
Thank you very much for having me. I think the great success of the summit meeting of the SEO held in Tianjin is very significant, especially in the context of the world situation today. Meaning the SEO wants to promote multilateralism, multipolarity, and encourage international cooperation among its members, as well as in the global south. In contrast to the position of certain countries, which really wants to impose its version of the truth onto all the other countries, sometimes even by holding a gun at the head of other countries. This is the sharp contrast in the world of today. And I think the multipolarity is very much believed by all the SCO members as the megatrend of the world of today, and no country should really indulge in the fantasy that it is the sole polarity in the world of today.
Do you, you talk there about a certain country. Xi Jinping criticized the bullying behavior, and I'm quoting him. He said the bullying behavior of other countries, that was interpreted as a veiled stab at the United States and Donald Trump.
Well, I don't think it is veiled. It's very explicit. I think there is only one country in the world which really is bullying around among many countries in the world. For example, launching this the world tariff war, which is the wrong war to launch. And then it tries to impose itself on top of other countries as if whatever it dictates should be the real truth. This is not the rule of law that most of us really wants to live in. This is kind of restoration of the law of the jungle in a sense. And I think that the SEO, which operates completely on consensus basis, and if any member state does not like what is being discussed, they can actually use its own veto power to bring the whole.
What are your thoughts on Burkina Faso making homosexuality punishable by jail time? Terrible. What do you mean? What do you think my thoughts would be by that? I mean, if that's what's going on, then not great. I suspect that it's one of those instances where a otherwise like anti-West figure is turning around and like using that as a leverage point to try to win favor with some of the more reactionary elements. Some of the more reactionary elements in the country, especially considering that they're like having a hard time pushing back against like ISIS adjacent groups militarily. I don't like that answer. You're hiding something, just like you're hiding the UK from Elon. This is true. I'm doing that. I've talked about the incorrect notion in a lot of these countries that have been dominated by Western influence, Western colonialism, and the false association or the conflation between pro-LGBT initiatives being seen as like a visible part of like influence peddling. It's wrong. It's incorrect. And that's part of where this kind of reactionary sentiment grows. But it's the same as like Western leaders taking an anti-trans or anti-gay stance, right? There are reactionary elements within the country, and they just like use that as a exit ramp. They use it as a way to try and to try and galvanize the public, or try to win over the public to be like, see, I'm uncompromising. I hate Western imperialism. Here's a simple expression of Western imperialism. It's gay shit. Ridiculous.
thing to a halt. I think this is truly a very democratic way of exercising collective leadership for more than 2,000 countries all together, gathered together, which represent kind of half of the population in the world and quite a chunk of global economy.
I don't believe these chatters are being sincere in what they're asking you. Wait, you don't think that chatter is a gay man or woman living in Burkina Faso? And isn't simply trying to find I've rarely spoken about Ibrahim Traoré anyway. Traoré, I'm saying his last name incorrectly. I haven't spoken much about him in general, but he's I think propped up as a beacon of anti-imperialism. And I know that a lot of NATO style NATO boosters actually fucking hate him because I've seen them dunk on him. Traoré. And they say Burkina Faso is getting fucking clobbered by, ISIS style groups. And they literally fucking promote that as though it's a good thing. I've seen people genuinely celebrate the ISIS burning down villages and shit because it's against the guy who's aligned with because it's against the guy who's aligned with Russia.
And I think it draws more and more magnetic attraction to many other countries in the world because they want to have a piece of this collective leadership and they want to have their own voice made known to the rest of the world rather than being dictated by one single big power.
Mr. Gao, do you think that Beijing then would view, and I mean Beijing, sorry, not Beijing, Taiwan would view Xi Jinping talks about bullying behavior. Taiwan would view the behavior of Beijing as bullying. And the United States Republican senators, a couple of them traveled to Taipei on Friday. They talked about the absolute need for Taiwan to remain free and preserve self-determination. In many ways, you're criticizing the United States for their bullying behavior, but there are certain countries, and certainly Taiwan views China as a bully.
No, I think all of us on the eve of the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the victory against fascism, we all need to remind ourselves that the one China policy and Taiwan being considered as part of China has been carved in stone as a legacy of the victory over Nazi Germany and Japanese fascism. Because if you read the Cairo Declaration and the Potsdam Proclamation, they all dictate that when Japan unconditionally surrender, Japan needs to surrender Taiwan back to China. This is the legal status. Taiwan has been part of China ever since the Cairo Declaration and the Potsdam Proclamation were made known to the world. And no one should pretend that Taiwan is separate from China. Taiwan is very much part of China. And this is the legacy of the victory of the Second World War.
So the military parade we're likely to see, is that also to signal to the United States that if it does intervene in any way, if China were to make a move on Taiwan, China...
Wait, China wasn't considered an allied power during World War II? Yes, it was. They had their own thing going on against Imperial Japan. Weird how the West doesn't acknowledge their fight against fascism. No, they do. China was aligned with the United States. There was intelligence sharing. Yeah, it was an allied power. It's recognized as an allied power.
Is ready to escalate this further.
The military parade on September the 3rd will be, in my judgment, the most important military parade in human history. It will showcase the best military weapons, hardware, software, drones, robotics of all kinds. The underlying message is to promote peace, meaning no country in the world should ever dare to impose war of any kind on China. And China will remain a very important force for peace, including force protecting peace across the two sides of the Taiwan Strait, meaning no country should be allowed to intervene in the cross-strait relations because it's purely a domestic, internal Chinese affair. It is not a situation involving two sovereign and independent countries, and no foreign country should be allowed to interfere and intervene in the internal matters of one China.
Back on base in Beijing and visibly relaxed. If there is one message Xi Jinping was happy to land today, it is that this relationship is rock solid. There was a sense they went out of their way to show just how cozy things are. The intended audience, no doubt, an American president who had maybe hoped he could disrupt them a bit. Putin is here in part to join commemorations to mark 80 years since the end of the Second World War. But just listen to how he framed it. No doubts over whether China still backs him in the war he's currently waging.
The memory of being brothers in arms, trust, mutual assistance, firmness in defending common interests formed the basis of the comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation between Russia and China in the new era. We were always together then, we remain together now.
I don't know anything about Taiwan. What part of what he said was wrong about his sovereignty? No, he just said that by the American government's own definition and in the eyes of the international community, Taiwan is legally a part of China. This is and this has been relitigated in the Nixon era, when the American government officially recognized the People's Republic of China and not the Republic of China, ROC, led by KMT, as the actual China. And since then, the American term for how they deal with this process by consistently beefing up the defense of Taiwan against Chinese incursion, as the American government states, has been has been a policy called strategic ambiguity, which, you know, for layman's terms means lying. On paper, America recognizes China as one China, Taiwan being a part of China, Chinese Taipei. But they don't abide by that standard, and they will routinely, when it's not the government making a statement, they will routinely say that, you know, Taiwan is an independent nation, Taiwan needs to defend itself, and you know, America must continue to have a security commitment to Taiwan's independence. Hassan has only a handful of bad takes. This is one. No. Get out, different governments. CCP has never controlled that island. Okay. This is not a bad take. This is just an accurate reflection of history. Okay? You had the nationalist forces. They lost. They escaped to Formosa. Okay? And before Mao could move its forces to Formosa to complete the full reunification and the full defeat of the KMT forces, the Korean War took place, and they obviously were positioned to go and deal with that instead. Okay? The notion that the KMT just took over the rulership and it's just like exchange hands is not the entire story. But also, they, for the longest time before full recognition of the PRC, had territorial claims that extended even beyond the current boundaries of the People's Republic of China. The ROC, Republic of China, spans even beyond the mainland China that we know of. That goes into, I think, like Mongolia as well. Having said that, of course, modern-day Taiwan is not the same as KMT. Ironically enough, KMT is more in favor of normalizing relations with China now than the DPP, which is the pro-American party that currently controls Taiwan and Taiwanese government, and they're deeply unpopular and becoming increasingly more unpopular as America consistently bullies Taiwan. The domestic policy, as far as I understand in Taiwan as it goes, is that Taiwanese people overwhelmingly favor not rocking the boat, not making any decisions whatsoever. If left alone, they would want full sovereignty, for sure. But as it stands, as they are between Western interests and Chinese interests, they want status quo more than anything else. They don't want any sort of war. They don't want any sort of Chinese incursion. They don't want Chinese military invasion, of course. They simply just want the current status quo to continue. That's it. This doesn't mean that they want full-blown personal reunification with China. They just don't want to be... They don't want to turn into Ukraine. Did nationalist forces cooperate with Mao during World War II? Yes, at certain points, yes, they did. That is a fair point. I recognize the U.S. does not need to make this decision for them. Yes, but to say that the United States has not played a formative role in Taiwanese politics, it would be ridiculous.
Meanwhile, this city, this army, is preparing. Wednesday will host a huge military parade here. Tens of thousands of soldiers, a demonstration of might, a show of total perfection. We were given rare...
Yes, unification as soon as possible is the lowest polling out of all of them. Maintain status quo and decide at a later date is high up there, but the highest version of all of those polled, chances of unification, independent stances of Taiwanese as tracked in surveys by Election Study Center from the NCCU from 1994 all the way to 2025. The highest polled is maintain status quo indefinitely. Okay. Independence as soon as possible polls. Independence as soon as possible polls only a little bit higher than unification as soon as possible. Most people just want nothing to change. Okay? That's it. They don't want to rock the boat. And it makes sense. They get to sell to America. They get money from America. They get to sell to China. They cooperate with China. They work with China. I mean, once again, a lot of people always yell at me over this, and it's really funny because I literally have Taiwanese relatives. They work in China. They work in mainland China. Like, it's just like I promise you, it's a complex situation. But I understand it to the best of my ability as a white Chinese man. Okay? It's just funny that other white American people. I have black friends I mean, it's a little bit different. Like, okay, the white Chinese part is a joke, obviously, but yeah.
Access to film some of the rehearsals to capture the anticipation.
Parade training is the main focus every day. It's an utmost honor to be part of this military parade and to be reviewed by the Party Central Committee, by General Secretary Xi Jinping, and this solemn, dignified, and sacred moment.
But the parade will be remarkable for who is here too. None perhaps more striking than North Korea's Kim Jong-un. He rarely leaves his hermit kingdom. He has never attended an event as big as this. There is a real dichotomy.
Bro, he's shy. Why are you calling him out like this? He's shy. Like, come on. He's coming out of his shell. He's that's messed up. That's messed up to call him out like this. This is first big social function, and you're over here making fun of him. That's fucked up. Who amongst us hasn't had to like attend an event that they weren't ready for? You know what I mean?
To the messaging here. On the one hand, China has spent the last few days telling the world it is the great bridge builder, the great convener of nations, the great preserver of a peaceful global order. But at exactly the same moment, this city is literally locking down ahead of one of the greatest shows of military might seen in many years that will be attended by some of the most controversial world leaders. It is messaging that perhaps only China could manage.
North Korea apologist? That's me, baby. I'm not a North Korea apologist. I'm a North Korea defender. I am Jusha's strongest soldier. Okay? As you know. I am a firm and committed believer in the immortal science of Marxist-Leninist Jushaism. A firm believer in the people's right to self-determination and sovereignty, self-reliance. When I speak, the dear leader speaks through me.
The parade will bring vast swathes of Beijing to a halt. The police and the army are everywhere. Opinion amongst locals.
I mean, I literally do have a North Korean poster right there, the DPRK poster. Straight out of DPRK. You can see it from here. Jusha isn't even Marxist. Yes, it's better. This guy is like not only taking me seriously, but is like mad. Yeah, it's not. It's better. Okay?
Divided.
It's a little disruption for sure, a little impact, but we all understand.
It's a once-in-a-decade event that showcases the nation's strength. The occasional half-day disruption is no...
This is strange messaging from China's perspective. I'm going to be honest. If they're trying to depict themselves as the normalizer to Europe and LatAm, you'd think they'd publicly distance themselves from international pariahs like DPRK, especially Russia. Fuck no. I don't think it's a strange message from China's perspective at all. China doesn't give a fuck about... Like, China is already normalizing relations with Western countries by just being the manufacturing hub. Also, I don't think the Latin American countries give a single shred of a remote fuck about the DPRK or Russia, for the record. We're talking about the European continent and we're talking about America. That's it. And maybe Canada as well. No one else around the world gives a single shred of a fuck, I don't think, about the DPRK and thinks that this is like a pariah and all this shit. Yeah, most people either don't give a fuck or like it. They like it a lot. The reason why they're doing this is to say, like, we're here. We're here. We're a force to be reckoned with. You know, play ball, play nice. I don't even think they give a fuck about like Russia's incursion in the Ukraine that much. Like some of them do for sure. Like the more the ones with like better relations with America and shit. But even then, I don't think it's like a deal breaker by any standard. Would you like the idea of giant U.S. military parades? I reluctantly, I do like them. And I've talked about how I think it's kind of cool, but it was a real disappointment watching the American ones take place. It was really bad. And I also like big statues too of like big leaders. Those are my weakest. Those are the two things that I actually think look cool. I'm a fan. And I like them.
No big deal.
This city knows the world is watching, and behind the strict precautions, there is a confidence about what it will show. Helen Ann.
You're misunderstanding what I'm saying. China's trying to position itself as a defender of the existing international institutions, as a defender of free trade, stuff like this, which flies in the face of all that's confusing messaging towards Europe. Pride is not a value judgment either. No, I don't think so. I think it makes sense. China is never going to be the fucking preserver of like the American-backed international institutions. China is saying that there's a new way out there. We promote stability. We promote normalizing relations with all countries, including the DPRK, including Russia. That's what they're saying. They're saying that we will maintain stability as the new major power, but we won't do it without. We won't do it with the. It's not like they're taking over the car and just taking the keys and just moving the car in the same direction. They're saying that like, if there is a global order, it will be a true egalitarian one rather than one that simply benefits America's interests. And I think that's the reason why they align themselves openly like this.
Smith, Sky News in Beijing.
Not a foot or hair is out of place. But the sweat-covered faces of these Chinese soldiers reveal their strain. They've been rehearsing for hours under the hot sun in preparation for China's massive military parade.
The parade will carry forward the great spirit of that war, remember history, honor the fallen, cherish peace, and open up the future.
Held to mark 80 years since the end of World War II, the event aims to showcase Beijing's military might and its latest weapons. 25 contingents of troops will march across Beijing's Tiananmen Square, alongside advanced tanks, fighter jets, drones, military trucks, and hypersonic missiles. Some will be equipped with cutting-edge air defense and electronic jamming systems. Authorities have been preparing for weeks, locking down and redirecting traffic in parts of the capital.
Honest question, what the fuck did China even do during World War II? Oh my God, Americans, bro. I'm not gonna like dunk on you too hard because I think this is just like a severe. This is directly born out of just a shitty education on World War II. They got genocided. Like, they had their own Holocaust. But because it was the Japanese doing it and Japan is our ally, and they just did this very cool technique of never accounting for it, never taking accountability or ownership over it, and even going so far as to praise the people that did it. People just don't know. It is pretty fucked up. And America kind of let Japan do it because they were like, we want your war criminals, incredibly important research in chemical and biological warfare. Chat, calm down. It's an honest question they're asking. Yeah, that's why I didn't yell at him, because it's like just a blind spot that many Westerners have. Then those weapons and those techniques that the American military took from the Japanese Nazis that were conducting said experiments were utilized in Korea, where America did its own neat little genocide. And the only reason why it's not considered a genocide and instead considered a forgotten war is quite literally because it was the international consensus and it was America doing it.
As a Chinese person,
like when you look at what the fuck's going on in Israel, when you're looking at what's going on in Gaza with what Israel's doing, like that, we did that in Korea. We did the exact same shit.
I'm very proud of the military. I'm looking forward to seeing the latest weapons, especially the new 6th generation of fighter jets.
China's military has developed very fast. In the past, China was bullied by foreigners, humiliated for many years. But now we are taking the lead.
And there's another reason for the tight security.
Several world leaders are expected to attend the military parade, which is being held right after the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Tianjin. Russia's Vladimir Putin and Belarus's Alexander Lukashenko are among those invited.
As with China's
Lukashenko, who invited blood? Bro thinks he's part of the team.
previous military parade
A
in
junior partner in the coalition, Lukashenko.
2015, Western leaders are unlikely to attend, but that doesn't mean they won't be watching. Friends and rivals alike will be paying close attention to the battle-ready hardware on display. Hardware Beijing says is designed to keep the peace, but ready to deploy in case of war. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera.
Dictatorships always use their military parades to show the world what they've got and how seriously they ought to be taken. China's 2015 parade concentrated on the missiles that could hit the United States. Its 2019 parade made much of the new drone technologies that it had. And this parade, we suspect, will try to demonstrate how good China could be at going to war very soon, in Taiwan, in the South China Sea, or higher.
Oh, man. Oh, so... I guess this is their version of, like, Kid Rock hanging out with Donald Trump, right? Like, it's kind of... It's in the same vein, except, like, obviously Steven Seagal is infinitely cooler than Kid Rock.
In the Himalayas along the Indian border.
Oh my God, is Steven Seagal invited as a guest of honor? I will fucking lose my mind. Oh my God. Is Steven Seagal invited to the fucking parade? Because that would be so sick. Oh my God.
Used it against me. Where has she
Seagal beat his wife? Oh, trust me. There's a long list of offenses that you can point to, that being one of them. He's done a lot, okay, in the period of time that he's been in operation. He's done a lot.
We expect to see its high-performance J-10 fighter jet, and we might see its 6th-generation Sharp Sword aircraft, a robot wingman to fly alongside its handler. We might see its new PL-15 air defense weapon. And it looks as if China wants to unveil its A-50 directed energy weapon, a laser gun to you and me, for air defense against drones. All very impressive if they work as advertised. But if these...
Oh, you're a hater, bro. You're a hater. You're a hater. That's hating. Hating. That's crazy. That's crazy. Get off China's dick. Get off China's dick. That's crazy. Oh, if it worked as advertised, it probably doesn't. It's cheap Chinese parts. Cheap Chinese components.
These displays pressures the battles of the near future. The ongoing war in Ukraine points up the battles being fought in the here and now. The Ukrainian battlefront hasn't altered very much since the autumn of 2022, and the battle around Pokrovsk is a prime example. The Russians need to take it for strategic reasons, and after several months that have left the place a complete ruin, they've surrounded it from north and south, but they've still not walked into the center of the city. And Ukraine's string of fortress cities just north of Pokrovsk, Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, Drozdkivka, and Kostiantynivka, they've all proved impossible for Russian forces to take by every means they've tried since the beginning of the first Russian attack in 2014. Sixth-generation warfare is certainly coming, as the parade in Beijing shows, but it hasn't arrived yet in Ukraine. Which is why North Korea's Kim Jong-un, basking in the limelight of being among 26 international leaders in Beijing, is so important to Russia. Because North Korea has supplied 6 to 12 million artillery shells for Russia's war, almost 1,000 missiles, deployed at least 13,000 troops, and has lost maybe half of them, killed and wounded, so far. Over 40% of all Russia's ammunition for this war, say the Ukrainians, comes from North Korea. Over 28,000 containers of ammunition, say the South Koreans, have been shipped to Russia. The fact is, Russia could not keep fighting its war at this tempo without North Korea.
North Korea.
So the warmth of the Kim-Putin embrace in Beijing, under the inscrutable gaze of Xi Jinping, suggests that this is all likely to continue.
First, Israel's offensive in Gaza continues with an overnight strikes reported in the central parts of the Palestinian.
这项命题最低是序列斯的神话生物，必须立刻向顺丰救援，向代发者和机械之心救援。
序列斯的神话生物，单靠我们有胜算吗？阿兹克先生，要是阿兹克先生还在停根，对统州的压制减弱了，赶紧通知阿兹克先生。阿兹克先生，让我命运不协调，取走您孩子头骨的幕后黑手可能要出现了。射击真实造物者，情况很危急。
如果圣堂的强援还没有抵达，邪恶降临体就要降生。你拿2件攻击性强的封印物。
我申请使用30782变异的太阳圣辉。
他昨天已被贝克兰德借走。
这么巧。
目前停根只有3件2级封印物，其中2件对高序列强者效果未知。2105血管小头对高序列强者实测有效，能窃取一定范围内某个目标的一项能力，但是几率较小。
那就血管小偷吧。
凡是触碰到2105的人，都会被偷走生命。切记，序列8的极限是半小时。
我会将注意事项都告诉伦纳德。诗人同学，该展现你的秘密了。
那你使用哪件？
我另有打算。
我申请启用封印核心，圣塞琳娜骨灰。
这需要圣堂特批。
我以停根职业者小队队长的名义启动战时紧急条款，申请圣塞琳娜骨灰。封印核心被取走，查尼斯门靠你们了。
愿女神庇佑你们。
Who are going to show up?
the turnout for reservists was 130%. This is significant. What we've seen is the Army engaging in various efforts so as to minimize these concerns, calling up units that have already been checked out, reviewed ahead of time to know that they will show up. Commanders being asked to check with each and every soldier ahead of time so as at least the appearance wouldn't be of such a low turnout. We also are seeing for the very first time during this war public announcements. Several hundred reservists who held a press conference today in Tel Aviv announcing they will not serve, and more public questioning. Part of this stems from just the extraordinary and extraordinarily complex situation in which these reservists are being called up to serve in a new war, in an expanded war that the commanders of the army oppose. So giving these orders when all of the soldiers know that the top brass of the army opposes this new maneuver is extremely complicated, and we're waiting to see clear figures if we ever do get them in the next few days.
And we're hearing reports that an Israeli cabinet meeting could possibly discussing the possible annexation of the West Bank.
That's right. Let's first just say that the actual annexation of the West Bank is a very complicated maneuver which would require months of military buildup and a supermajority in the Israeli parliament, which Netanyahu does not currently command. But there is constant talk, constant threat. So there is going to be what's called a small cabinet, a narrow security cabinet meeting of maybe just even 4 or 5 ministers this evening, in which what we have been told is that Israel is going to, this group of Israeli ministers is going to be addressing the threat of many European nations, many allied nations, including Canada and as of yesterday, Belgium, to recognize a Palestinian state this month at the United Nations General Assembly. And so this meeting is being called to address the ramifications of this, quote, possible diplomatic responses. All of this is code language for what Israeli ministers have been calling, and I quote now, I'm quoting the Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar, the imposition of sovereignty, of Israeli sovereignty over the West Bank. This could even end up in a declaration that is mostly for show, but it is significant, and it is very significant in terms of Israel's intentions regarding all of Palestinian territories in the West Bank and Gaza, where, as we stand right now, the government of Israel is not really open to any option except for its own takeover of all these lands.
Noga Tanaposki reporting there from Jerusalem. Thank you.
Outside Parliament in Jakarta, Indonesians maintain pressure on their government. They want their grievances addressed by authorities. They've put forward 17 proposals and 8 other issues. Among them a rise in the minimum salary, a halt to mass...
My goats in Indonesia. Yeah, there is mass instability, mass unrest taking place in Indonesia over the past couple of days. From what I understand, especially the youth, but it's a multi-generational struggle, but especially the youth have made a lot of demands. The Indonesian government has responded in a very predictable and very violent manner. People have been killed. There was the images of like the police armored personnel carrier running over, I think it was like an Uber driver or something. And I mean, I think this is expected, especially if you consider the history of Indonesia and how it got to the point that it got to through American intervention, of course. Vincent Bevins wrote extensively on it, called In the Jakarta Method. Indonesia has a history of taking CIA aid and intelligence to assassinate millions of its political dissidents that it declared to be communist and socialist, even if they were like simply student protesters and shit like that. That is how it's been able to reassert its power. And I mean, the country, I think, has improved overall, but there's still many issues.
Layoffs and an overhaul of the financial system.
The biggest reform we need for Parliament is for them to work for the people rather than for the party leaders or the parties themselves. That's what reform really means. No matter who you are, it doesn't matter. As long as you only work for your party, you're not working for the people.
It's normal for the public to be angry because essentially there have been too many violations committed by the state. So many things done by the state, I would say, do not accommodate the people's aspirations. So they end up angry.
Public anger erupted on the 25th of August when the government announced a housing indemnity for members of parliament, a perk 10 times the country's minimum wage. The protest turned violent after the death in Jakarta on Thursday of a motorcycle taxi driver crushed by a police van. Authorities deployed the army in several cities. The NGO Contrast says 20 people are reported missing. The protests are the largest since President Prabowo Subianto took office less than a year ago. To calm the situation, he's done away with the housing indemnity for parliamentarians while pledging to remain firm in the face of riots.
Protests in Indonesia against alleged government corruption and police brutality are ongoing. The military has been deployed to break up demonstrations. Protesters are angry about wage inequality and the benefits granted to members of parliament. President Prabowo Subianto has promised some allowances will be cut, but the concession has done little to deter the crowds. At least 8 people have been killed in the past week. Jessica Washington is following the latest protests in the Indonesian capital.
I'm in central Jakarta, where thousands of motorbike taxi drivers are gathering here to demonstrate against the killing of a fellow motorbike taxi driver, Afan Kurniawan. The 21-year-old was killed during demonstrations here in Jakarta. He was hit by an armored police vehicle. Today, these thousands of drivers are gathering to demonstrate that not only can they honor their colleague and also call for their various demands about economic equality, but they can do it peacefully. They can do it even by shaking the hands of police officers.
The Biden admin put its weight behind the current president, who's a remnant of the U.S.-backed Suharto dictatorship, not dissimilar from Biden admin's backing of Marcos Jr., son of the dictator of Marcos, or Yoon in Korea. More U.S. meddling made this inevitable. Yeah, it's interesting, though, because it's like the Chinese government is also deeply involved with the Indonesian government and has played a formative role in like improving and doing big, bold infrastructure spending in Indonesia. But I think I would say that I mean, it's just fucking transparent corruption, you know? It's just transparent corruption from political figures in the country and the inevitable mass instability that is born out of that.
And giving them flowers. Yesterday, Prabowo Subianto reiterated that Indonesians do have the right to peacefully protest, but he also said that those who commit any acts of violence during the course of these protests may be guilty of treason or even terrorism. So certainly since those comments from Prabowo Subianto, since we've seen an increased security presence on the streets of Jakarta, including soldiers deployed at many points around the city, we have seen much smaller demonstrations, but there is still a sense that this week of protests will continue. Just last night in Bandung, there were social media videos which showed police firing tear gas around university campuses in Bandung. The UN Human Rights Office also raised concerns about this week of unrest in Indonesia. I'll just read a short segment of what they had to say. They noted that there must be thorough and transparent investigations into all alleged violations of international human rights law, including with respect to the use of force. A few other important points to note: the Commission for Disappeared and Victims of Violence, that's Kontras here in Indonesia, has noted that at least 20 people remain missing since those demonstrations. Most of them were last seen in central Jakarta. Some of them, however, were last seen in East Jakarta or even the north, or even on the outskirts in Depok as well. Also, civil society organizations here in Indonesia raising the alarm over the arrest of a civil society leader here in Jakarta. He was arrested late last night. Jessica Washington, Al Jazeera, Jakarta.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news.
The Epstein releases a nothing burger, nothing new. Scoop. Source of the House Oversight Committee confirmed documents posted by Representative Anna Paulina Luna are the same 33,000 pages of Epstein documents they received, 97% already public and a part of the broader plan to block transparency. Is there more Indonesia news? Like, is there an explainer that we can look at for Indonesia? Or no? Oh yeah, they're using the One Piece flag too,
teguran ya untuk pemerintah.
which is sick. In Indonesia, authorities are divided on how to react to people flying the One Piece flag.
So we begin with...
Did you just send me the same fucking link in the same video that I just watched? Oh no, this is from 4 days ago. Okay.
With breaking news out of Indonesia, anti-government protests have turned violent in the capital, Jakarta, and other major cities for a second night. Police fired tear gas and deployed water cannon to disperse crowds. Hundreds are protesting against a number of cost of living related issues, including the lack of jobs and low wages. But the death of a motorcycle taxi driver who was run over by a police vehicle on Thursday has worsened that anger. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto has apologized for the excessive use of force by police and is calling for calm. Well, let's speak to Al Jazeera's producer, Siriana Hasibuan, who joins us on the phone from Jakarta. Siriana, it's gone past 8 p.m. local time in Jakarta. Tell us about what's happening now on the streets.
Well, people have been demonstrating in Jakarta the whole day today and also in many other cities in Indonesia. Well, the crowd of angry mobs started together earlier in the day outside police quarters, throwing rocks and shoot fireworks into the headquarters. And then the police fired tear gas at them. The crowd then started to burn things around the area. It is now raining heavily in Jakarta right now. And then hopefully the situation is calming down a bit. But people are still gathering, so who knows what will happen later on tonight.
Yeah, we are seeing those live pictures from Jakarta. And as you say, it's raining, but people are still out on the streets. Remind us, Siriana, how these demonstrations started.
It started earlier this week when students demonstrating against salary package received by member of parliament, which is more than 10 times of minimum wage in Indonesia. People are angry. They feel that the government and the parliament do not care about their situation. Their living cost is very high right now. Jobs hard to find. And then they feel like the rich keep getting richer, but then there's no improvement in...
It is not lost on me that the same issues persist everywhere around the world, with some exceptions, but mostly everywhere around the world.
Their daily life. And then
especially a major issue in places where we have intervened and interfered in the sovereignty of these governments. Interesting.
The demonstration getting bigger, then clash happened between the protesters and
I mean,
the
it's
police.
happening in fucking America too, to a lesser degree, but it's...
And then after that, later that night, the motorbike driver got killed by police car. And then the situation even more heated after that.
Okay, Ciarina, thank you so much for the update. That's Al Jazeera's producer, Ciarina.
Corruption is rampant? No, it's not. It's not just corruption. They're fucking frustrated by the cost of living. The corruption is the way that they see it. The corruption is also making politicians refuse to address it.
Rina Hasibuan on the line there from Jakarta with the latest on those demonstrations. These are the latest pictures we're getting from the Indonesian capital. Police and protesters on the streets clashing for a second night over the death of a motorcycle driver. But that wasn't the initial anger that the issue that angered protesters, as we've heard from our correspondent. Let's discuss this further now with Wirya Dewina, who's the Deputy Director of Amnesty International Indonesia, joining us from Jakarta. Thank you so much for being with us. As our producer noted there, the capital of Indonesia has seen a series of demonstrations this week with the protests stemming from a number of issues. What are Indonesians most angry about right now?
Well, I think the death of the motorcyclist last night, was something that really triggers a lot of emotional outbursts, because this is the final straw that breaks the camel back. Although these demonstrations has been running quite heatedly in the past couple of days, what we need to understand, this is not even the first demonstration, big large-scale demonstration that's happening this year, or not even the demonstrations or protests that have faced excessive and unnecessary use of force by police forces. There was another demonstrations in August, another one in May, just this year alone. And last year there was a massive demonstrations nearing the end of the year. And all of those demonstrations faced excessive and unnecessary use of force by the police forces. Tear gas was used improperly, water cannons, beatings. So I think when people are seeing with their own eyes a motorcyclist being trampled by a police vehicle, that is just the trigger.
Right. As you say, this is not the first demonstration, but the pictures that we're seeing are quite spectacular, of fires burning in Jakarta. How do these protests fit into Indonesia's longer history of public mobilization over inequality and governance issues? What feels different this time?
Well, what the government needs to understand is that they have been continued to gaslit people's opinion in the past several years. It is only makes sense that the people are trying to shout their voice more loudly. What we are looking in the past several weeks is a blatant show of the parliament, the government, dancing around as the people are struggling. Economics are difficult in Indonesia at the moment. Jobs are difficult for Indonesians at the moment. And we know that in Indonesia, one of the biggest pain points for a lot of Indonesians are those jobs, livelihoods. So what's happening now is something that should have been expected if only the government would listen, if only the parliament would listen to the people.
Right. The unrest is no doubt a key test for President Prabowo Subianto. He's already apologized for the excessive use of force that led to the motorcycle driver's death. But what else does he need to do now to quell this anger? What does he need to do for Indonesians to accept, to trust once again their government?
Well, for starter, what you said as the president's apology was actually a non-apology. The president indeed conveyed his condolences. He did express his regret, but he did not apologize to the people. He did not apologize for the excessive use of force. And he did not provide clear action points of what the government will do to solve this big issue. And this is such a big issue that Amnesty International have been documenting multiple excessive use of police force throughout the years.
Wait, what? The reaction from the government about lack of jobs is to ask us to find jobs abroad? That's insane, dude. That's fucking insane. But yeah, it's this kind of instability is expected. If left unaddressed, economic issues are going to piss people off. That's how it's been historically. And this kind of like militant repression only makes the situation worse. Same thing that happened in California. Same thing that happens all around the world. The reason why these protests get more violent, or when chatters, I see them asking like, why can't Americans do this? Like, why is America not doing this? And there's a reason. Because American material conditions are nowhere near as bad as it is in a country like Indonesia. So when the starting point is far worse overall, because like the Indonesian middle class, which the Indonesian middle class individual is far worse off than the American middle class individual is. The Indonesian poor is worse off overall than the American poor. And therefore, people have less to lose and are willing to and get